G'day, welcome to Say It With Guitars. I'm your host, Pete Cornelius. Each episode I'll be digging deep and getting to hang with some of Australia's finest guitar pickers, songwriters, producers, collectors and makers. I look forward to bringing you these fun conversations and I hope you enjoy Say It With Guitars. Hey, thanks for joining us folks for another episode. It's been a busy few weeks since the last little drop. I played a fun gig with a band called Let the Cat Out, which is a band that existed about 10 years ago. We put a few records out over the years and it was really nice to hang out with those fine folk and play some cool funky jams. It's great. Also been busy back in the studio with Ange Boxall. She's a singer-songwriter from down here in the east coast of Tassie, just sort of finishing off the last stages of her record. So excited to get that out in the near future. Stay tuned. And had a great chat with Jess Zubkevych, another fellow Tasmanian guitar picker. And I hope you enjoyed the chat. Cheers. Before we crack into today's show, I'd like to shout out to our sponsor, Mr. Billy Tarrant from Tarrant Guitars. Billy's an amazing luthier and he makes some real sweet instruments. I'm lucky enough for him to have built me a 00 size acoustic guitar, which I've dragged all around the country and it's sounding better than ever. So check out tarrantguitars.net.au, Tassie's one-stop custom workshop for custom-made guitars, all guitar repairs and services. Let's get into the show. All right, I'd like to welcome to today's podcast, Say It With Guitars, Jess Zubkevych. How are you doing?
Hey, good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Sorry, we're just having a quick laugh because I've been mispronouncing your surname. It's not the easiest one to roll off the tongue, so apologies. And hopefully there's no insult.
Not at all, not at all.
Excellent. How is your, what are we, Wednesday? How's your Wednesday? What have you been up to today, Jess?
I've just been working at my day job today, down at Maton Guitars, so also guitar related. And
absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a busy week so far. Yeah.
That's great. So you're playing guitar, your day job's involved around guitars, and I've noticed you've been guitar teching a bit as well. You've been like full on guitar heavy. That's great. Can you tell us a little bit about about your job at Maton, maybe, since we're sort of halfway there?
Yeah, I've always sort of worked in the music industry. Obviously, I'd love to make my living from playing guitar, but easier said than done. So, I've worked in a lot of music shops, and about 6 years ago, I started working at Maton when I moved to Melbourne. So my job there now is it's a few different things because it's a kind of a small business, and so you usually wear a few different hats while you're there. I don't build the guitars, but I'm a sales rep, so I sell guitars to stores in Australia, and I also do production scheduling, which is really interesting. So, and a few other bits and pieces around the place. So
what does that detail? The production scheduling.
Well, it's pretty complex sort of thing. So it's basically choosing which guitars the guys and girls on the floor are going to build every week. So depending on what orders we have in our system, and also what sort of things people can make and stuff like that. So we've got certain guitars that we can make a lot of, and some we can't make it as many of. So just kind of balancing things out. Yeah.
Cool. Does that come down to timber availability as well? Or is that?
Yeah, it can do. So, we've got pretty good supply chain and timber management going on. So we've usually got enough timber in the building, but once it comes in, it needs to be dried for about 4 months, some of it. So it can be a bit of a process. So you usually, I can't just decide one week I'm going to make every guitar with rosewood because then we'd run out of rosewood. So it's sort of, managing some of that as well, which is interesting. Yeah.
That's great. That's really cool. And does that mean you get to travel around a bit as well to different stores around? I suppose COVID's sort of been a bit funny in that relationship to travelling, but I don't know, do you come down to Tassie, stuff like that, and sort of hang out with the stores down here and try and talk shop?
Funny you mentioned that. Funny you mentioned that, actually, because I'm going to Tassie tomorrow.
Oh, are you? Well, there you go.
Yeah. And I haven't been to visit the two stores that we sell Matons to in Tassie for 2.5 years or something like that. So I'll be heading down to Hobart and then just chatting with the guys and seeing what's happening down there, and then up to Launceston. So
Yep.
And get across to South Australia a bit and all throughout Melbourne. So it's a pretty cool job getting to go into guitar shops and see what's happening, and then spending time at the factory as well, and being involved in all that. So it's pretty cool.
That's great. And do you get to hang out with any artists come in, like with custom orders, things like that, or sort of artist spec things? Like, is there any sort of relations like that?
Yeah, a bit. We do have a custom shop at Maton, so like I'll often be involved in speccing up the custom shop guitars. A few really cool ones happened kind of before my time at Maton. So I think John Fogerty came in once because he'd seen the Wiggles playing the Maton guitar. So he called up the factory, actually. He cold called the factory and asked if he could come in, which I wish I was there for, because that would have been amazing. Yeah. But Tommy Emmanuel and John Butler comes in a lot. Neil Finn.
Yep.
People like that. So it's good. Less so recently with COVID. So hopefully it all sort of starts back up again, and that sort of stuff starts happening. That's
great. Yeah, it would have been quite the day, like the John Fogerty cold call.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe it, really, to be honest.
Excellent. And you've mentioned Adelaide. So have you spent most of your sort of, I guess, younger life in Adelaide? Did you grow up in South Australia? Yeah,
I've sort of grown up all over, really. But, I was born in Tassie. My mum's family's all from Launceston, and we moved to northern New South Wales when I was about 3 till 10, and then from Adelaide after that. I started playing guitar and playing music once I'd moved to Adelaide. So, that's where I grew up gigging and sort of all my formative years, I guess. Yeah.
Yep. What was the thing that sort of sparked your interest into the guitar? Like things that you heard on television or saw on TV or the radio, or your folks got into music, or what was the like little spark that got you into guitar?
My mum's pretty musical, so she plays sort of more keyboard sort of piano kind of thing, and my dad always wanted to play guitar, and he loved music, so we'd always have some kind of cheap guitar lying around, and I'd see my mum playing Wild Thing on it, which is that's sort of what I was into. And my great grandpa, so her grandfather, he was a sort of professional guitarist by night in Launceston in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And he played like sort of Western swing, Hawaiian country music and things like that. And I'd always go to his house when I was little kid, and there'd be this room full of guitars and double neck guitars and big amps and all these things. And so I'd always want to have a look in that room. And I think, he passed away when I was only 4, so unfortunately I didn't really get to see him play too much, but definitely inspired me, like knowing that he played guitar and seeing the photos. So that was probably, one of the reasons why I wanted to start playing, I think.
Absolutely, especially that sort of quirky, sort of double neck, sort of steel orientated or Western swing or Hawaiian sort of music like that. For me, just seemed like another world away when I was a kid. But to have that as part of the family sort of sound, I think that's very cool, very, very guitar-y.
Yeah, he did a lot of his own little recordings on cassette tapes and stuff like that. So even more recently, we'd still like listen back to them. So they still worked, which was good, and looked through his old sheet music and things like that. And the guitars still exist in the house that he used to live in. So his son, my great uncle, lives there now, and the guitars are still in the house. Like no one's sort of been able to split them up. So even though it's been literally 30 years since he passed away, they're still in his music room.
Wow.
And still in the same place. So
yeah. Does anybody else in the family play as well?
My brother and sister do a bit. Over there in Tassie where the guitars are, I think one or two of my cousins have started to play now, like some of my little cousins. So it's good to have some more musos in the family. Yeah.
Can't have too many.
No.
That's cool. So after having a bit of a listen to the tracks you sent me for the last few days, it sounds like we're on similar paths, I think, as inspiration. I could hear a lot of the Texas sort of Stevie Ray Vaughan approach to guitar and your early work. Was he quite an influence for you, Jess?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was just one of the first things that I sort of heard that I thought, oh, wow, I really want to play that. That's really, really cool. It was really exciting. I think the first thing that kind of got me into it was some of the other guys at school who were playing guitar. They were doing they did the Stevie Ray Vaughan cover of Little Wing at a school concert once, and I was just like, they literally played it note for note all the way through, and I was like, what is this song? And that was, after I heard that, I just wanted to learn everything. Whereas I think before that, I liked to play guitar and I was playing chords, but I didn't really have any direction or anything that I really, really liked. Even though I loved guitar, I just didn't have a thing that was my thing that I was into, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely was my introduction to guitar players, I think, because, like you hear a lot of cool guitar on mainstream music at that time, and it was a pretty good time to play guitar. But to hear someone like Stevie Ray Vaughan just taking that song, like Little Wing, that blew my mind when I heard that. I think it was on a videotape I had. It was like a video of the Fender Custom Shop for all these like Strats and things, and then that song was playing. I was like, wow, that was pretty incredible. So
and how you can hear the amp buzzing as well in the background on that song. Like it's pretty inspiring, I think.
How did you get onto that? Was that through magazines and things, or did you say that was through school, through guys playing it at school?
Yeah, through people at school. A few other guys at school were into that kind of stuff, and I think I asked my guitar teacher at school, can I learn how to play Little Wing? And he'd been giving me hopefully he doesn't listen to this, Powderfinger and all these kind of songs that I was not into, and I was like pretty bored, and I was like, can I learn Little Wing? And he actually printed me out the music, but then he never showed me how to play it. So I think I quit my guitar lessons maybe a week after that, and I started to learn by myself and watching videos and things like that. And I was found my own path after that.
Yeah. What sort of age were you when you first started doing that kind of teaching yourself stuff?
Probably around like 15. So just maybe like 2 years after I started playing.
Yep.
Just sort of got into my own stuff. I was pretty heavy into blues. So it's obviously not the hardest style of music to kind of teach yourself and work on your own, because a lot of it's about feel and things like that. So
absolutely. That's cool. And
using the old tab crawler and stuff like that on the internet, the old tab sites back in the day as well.
And was that a Steve Ray Vaughan Strat I saw you play on some of those YouTubes? The left-hand tremolo?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I got that one when I lived in London for 2 years when I was 20, and I think as soon as I didn't go over there with a guitar because I wanted to buy a new one when I got there, of course.
Cool.
And I bought a cheaper Strat and took it home, and I was like, oh, it doesn't feel right. And I went into London, into Denmark Street, which is the street with all the music shops.
Yep.
And I think I saw that guitar up on the wall, and I was like, all right, I'm going to give this one a go. And as soon as I had a go, it just felt like the easiest guitar to play. Something about it, I could just bend so easy. I was like, I actually returned the other guitar and bought that one instead. So, yeah.
That's cool.
I had to take the SRV off the pick guard because
it's funny.
Play as well as him, so you can't really have his initials on there.
There's only one Steve Ray Vaughan. So I actually did a similar thing. I had a friend of mine in Sydney looking out for a Strat for me, and he saw a Steve Ray Vaughan Strat. I think it might have been at Bondi Music or something like that, and it already had a mint green plate on it. So I was like, sweet. But it came with the Steve Ray Vaughan plate as well, which is good to have. Awesome. But definitely it was nice to not.
Have you still got that guitar?
I do. I love it. Sounds mighty.
Yeah. I've had a lot of Strats actually. I've had probably 10 Strats, not at once. And that's the one that stuck. Something about the neck and I think that it's got a bit of a flatter fretboard radius, which I like, and bigger frets, and it always felt easy to bend on. And the pickups, they're not the typical Strat sound, but I'm really into it. So the only one I've kept.
I was going to say, you've still got that guitar. Yeah,
I've still got it. It's actually in Noosa with my brother at the moment because I'm not really playing Strat, but I don't want to sell it. So I'm like, he wanted a guitar to borrow. So I said, well, you can borrow that one. Just make sure you look after it.
Yeah, strict orders.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very cool. So what brought the move to the UK? Like, I know that typically with blues music, America is the homeland. It's the king of all blues orientated musics, really. What was the move to the UK? Was there a friend or family connection, or what was happening there?
I think a lot of it was to do with just the ease of getting over to the UK and getting a visa and things like that. It's pretty easy for Australians who are under 32, I think it is, to get that, 2-year working holiday visa. Whereas I would not have known where to start with the US. I also had connections with a few people over there that I'd met kind of on the internet, other musicians, and so I felt like I knew a few people, and it didn't feel like too much of a stretch from Australia. Even though I'd never been overseas or lived out of home, and I just decided to do both at once. Go over to the other side of the world. But I had heard through my friends over there that there was like a bit of a blues scene happening. So I figured there'd be enough places to play. And I was really obsessed with like Amy Winehouse. So all of that kind of stuff was going on around that time because I think it was 2008 when I went over there. So there was like blues and soul, like English sort of style happening. And, I just hoped when I moved over there that I'd bump into her at the pub or something like that, which unfortunately didn't happen. But, yeah.
I'm still not impressed.
Yeah, cool. So, did you live in the middle of London, like, or did you sort of move out a bit in the burbs to sort of, I don't know, make it a bit more affordable, or how was living costs and stuff like that at the time?
Yeah. Oh, it's very expensive. Like you even think, I think now, and I compare it to what I pay to rent in Melbourne, like 15 years later or whatever it is, and it was still more expensive than what I'm paying now. So, at first I lived sort of in Surrey, which is about an hour out of central London, because my friend who I knew had a spare room at her flat. Yep. So that was sort of an easy way to get over there and feel pretty safe with it. But figured out pretty quickly that there wasn't much going on in that town, and being in central London was sort of where it was at. So for the second year I lived there, I was living East London, Bethnal Green, which is like pretty close to central, and most of the blues clubs and stuff are in Soho and sort of any of that sort of central London around Oxford Street sort of area. So I was very close to everything from that point on, and made it a lot easier to go out and not have to worry about, catching that last train to get back to Surrey. So it was good. There was quite a lot of clubs that had opened up at that time as well. So there was at least, I don't know, you could almost blues jam every single night of the week. So you rock up at one of those venues and get up and jam with people, and that's sort of what I did to start off with when I lived over there. Yeah.
It's definitely a good way to network and introduce yourself to other people in the same sort of vibe, like you get out to those blues jams and make a name for yourself and hang out with some people and, make some connections. Definitely a good way to do it. I know
definitely.
I think, what's one club in the Soho called? Is it Still Got the Blues or something like that?
Ain't Nothing But the Blues.
Ain't Nothing But, yeah. I remember going in there one night, watching some tunes, and it's a cool little, tiny little bar.
Yeah. Oh, we used to play there probably every 2 weeks. Once I had an actual band going, and we're doing little 3-set gigs there, and like even midweek it could get pretty raucous, and there'd always be a good crowd. I think it was one of those things that's probably in the Lonely Planet book or whatever. So people coming to London would always come and check it out. So yeah, there's a good crew of musicians around there, and lots of tourists, of course.
How did you go with putting a band together, or did you sort of slot into a pre-existed band that were chasing a guitar player, or how did that evolve?
Just through the jams, actually. Just going every week, I sort of made friends with a few other people my age, because I was only like 21, and the jam sort of age range was from like 20 years old up to 60, so there's a big wide range of people, and I made friends with this girl's a couple of years older than me called Beth, and she's a singer, and we used to always get up and play together. And then we joined up with a drummer and a bass player who were also in their mid-20s, and started a band from that, just because we all got along, and we all, you kind of get to audition playing with each other during the jam, I guess. And so you kind of knew from doing enough jams with them that we were probably going to work as a band. And it did. And we played, over the last year that I was there, we played maybe 2 or 3 gigs a week and did our own little EP and some original songs. And it was really fun.
Great. And did you take it on the road a bit? Did you head over to Europe or anything like that? Or what did you do with the band after you sort of formed and did the EP?
I wish we did. Yeah. Should have done that. We did some stuff in the UK, but we didn't get out of the UK. It would have been great to go over to Holland or Germany, I think. Seeing as I was the only one who was like Australian, I think I was a bit concerned about like my visa and stuff like that. I was like, I don't want to go to Europe and then not be allowed back in or whatever. So it was probably my fault.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. How did you go? So was that your only form of employment over there while you're hanging out in London, or did you sort of get some sort of day job to sort of keep things afloat?
Yeah, I had a little side job just at HMV, which is kind of like JB Hi-Fi, I guess, for Australians. Yeah, it's like the English version of that. And that was on Oxford Street. So I was just like, working in a CD shop basically. But it was interesting because, and we had like Paul Weller came in and Jamie Hintz from The Kills and Pete Burns from Dead or Alive. Like a lot of celebrities would come in to shop as well, which was kind of funny.
Oh, right. That is cool.
Yeah.
Was there any in-store shows? Any artists coming to do in-stores or anything?
Not heaps while I was there, but I know because there was 2 HMVs on Oxford Street, and I think I might have been the slightly smaller one, and the other one was the one where they did more of the in-stores. That really massive one,
That's the one I'm thinking of, I think. Yeah, it's on the corner of... Yeah, wicked. That's cool. Yeah, it's definitely something I think most people should try and do is to sort of break free from the home comforts and try and make a hustle somewhere else and meet some extra people and just see how people interpret music in different areas. It's such a wonderful learning thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it really changed my outlook and me as a person as well, like getting to experience that. And I was young enough where I didn't really care about money, and I was happy to be very poor and just play gigs most of the time. And and as far as playing as well, it's like I'd grown up playing blues guitar in my bedroom and then going there and playing with other people and seeing what everyone else was into. Yeah, it changed my outlook a lot. It probably wasn't as cool to rip off all the Stevie Ray licks at that point. So in London, people there were more into B.B. King and Freddie King and like those sort of guys, and they didn't really they're like, why are you bringing a tube screamer to the blues jam? So sort of, taught me a few things, I guess.
Yeah. So back home in Adelaide before you moved to London, were you playing around a bit? Like did you form yourself a little band, or did you sort of sit in with some dudes, or how did that all – did you get any like live live experience back in Adelaide?
Yeah, I got a little bit. Like my brother and sister and I, we had a little band. It wasn't a blues band because I hated blues, but it was more of a kind of indie rock band where we kind of wrote our own songs and recorded our own little things at home. We did a few gigs around town, but then I'd sit in with some older guys that had some blues bands, so I'd sit in with them occasionally, and that was. But I only kind of did that maybe 4 or 5 times, and then I headed overseas, and that's where I got most of my experience. I guess. Yeah.
Yep. It's cool. It's quite an interesting way to do it. I suppose. I don't know if there's a traditional way of doing it at all, but I guess most people sort of generate a bit of a career and then like head off and then try and expand it. But you've sort of like gone overseas quite green, I suppose, in that respect, and just sort of opened the doors for learning, just sort of like taking as much of another culture in as you can and just sort of really learning and growing as an artist before you've got too many bad habits or not bad,
Yeah, definitely.
Musical habits, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, I did like a Cert 4 and a diploma or half of a diploma of music at TAFE before I went to London, which was great sort of background, but I think actually going overseas and playing guitar in bands for 2 years sort of was actually better learning experience for me in the end. So yeah, it's good to have a bit of the theoretical background, and then actually going and playing was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you sort of took a bit of a turn from that Texas style blues, because I know that every time I've seen you play, I can't hear any of that anymore. You've sort of,
I know,
you've gone more down the kind of Brian Setzer, kind of Chris Cheney sort of vibe with the Gretsch, and a bit of work on the Bigsby.
Yeah, I love that.
Did you hear that music from somewhere, or did you like get introduced to it? Like, what was the introduction to that sort of style of guitar playing?
I'm trying to think of what the actual introduction was, and I can't even remember. I think I actually just really liked the look of the Gretsch guitars, and I was so sick of Strats. And like I said, I'd gone through so many, and I was like, I need a different guitar. And I was like, what can I buy now? And I think as I got into Gretsch, I must have started researching Gretsch guitarists and heard Brian Setzer, of course, and saw Poison Ivy from the Cramps, who was a big influence too. And then I just started really liking like surf music and some of that sort of guitar instrumental stuff like Dwayne Eddy and Link Ray and that kind of stuff, and lots of reverb and whammy bar and that sort of sound. Yeah, just got into that instead. And as soon as I got my Gretsch guitar, I just didn't play anything else for 10 years. So pretty into the Bigsby, and it became a huge part of my style as well. And yeah, definitely I completely changed my style. To split personality or something, I don't know.
For her head. In cups spiked with arsenic. Jiffy, I'll make things right.
So was that like a bit of a subconscious decision, do you think? Like that just happened naturally, or did you go, oh, I'm kind of like really, I need a change, or I'm not enjoying this sort of style of music that I've been playing for a long time. I need a bit of a new new take or like thing behind it, do you think?
Might have been a bit bored, I think, probably, and just coming back to Adelaide and not having anyone to play with, and not really knowing people who liked blues as much. I needed something different to do, and I'm not a singer, so I think if I was a singer, I probably would have kept playing blues. But because I didn't sing, I sort of like, and I was still young as well, so I was still learning about different types of music that I liked, and I think I had got a bit bored. Like when we were playing in London, we were doing 3-set gigs, and it was like, 16 songs a set or something, and every song was a 12-bar format.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, I was looking for something else. Not that the kind of rockabilly, psychobilly stuff is any more complex than blues, but it was just something a bit different and maybe a bit more attitude, a bit more kind of raucous. Not as technical as well, and I kind of liked kind of the wildness of it, I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely, coming from that structured blues sound, like it is a free form music, but it does have elements of its structure and its arrangement, and it sort of fits in a form, and especially once you get a few blues purists coming to gigs, they want to hear a certain style of thing. Whereas I think, that kind of rockabilly, psychobilly vibe is just more about the energy and about the raucous approach and the freedom to kind of just get noisy and I guess it has that punk ethos,
Yeah.
Yeah, attitude, which as a young player, it just, I think that's just what naturally you want to, have in there as well. A bit of that young angst, you know.
Yeah. And it's always fun to play it live, because you can really sort of jump around on stage if you want, because you're not trying to worry about playing everything perfectly. Just, bend the whammy bar as much as you want.
Yeah, just drench it in reverb and off you go.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of reverb, when I was in LA once, I went to see Dick Dale perform, and he had two Showmans. They are like the blonde Fender Showmans, and you had the Fender reverb tank like suspended from the ceiling because it was just otherwise it just would have like wobbled. When you walk past the spring reverb, they just make that ghosty sound. So he had this thing like this reverb tank hanging off the ceiling. It was like, wow, Dick Dale. It was so cool.
Wow.
So
was it loud?
Fucking so loud.
Yeah.
It was insane. And the guy I was staying with he knew the drummer. So we got to hang out with the drummer backstage and stuff. I didn't get to see Dick, but just talking to the drummer, he's like, my ears are so shot. Like, got those 2 amps cranked.
Yeah. Oh, I bet that would be, amazing to see. I think the only kind of surf band or international sort of surf band that I've got to see live is Lost Straitjackets. Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, they wear the sort of Mexican wrestling masks. I guess that's the other thing I like about
El
surf
Pinto
music.
guitars, is it? El Pinto or something like that? Probably got the same guitar.
Yeah, they've all got matching guitars. I'm totally into matching outfits and matching guitars for bands as well.
Yeah.
So that's probably why I was into the kind of surf music thing, because there's often that element to it.
Yeah. That's cool. And did you get to see much music when you were in London? Was there some big names you got to go and see, like Jeff Beck?
I was very, very, very poor. So I didn't have a whole lot of money, but then I just thought about it. I actually did see a few people. So I'm not so much into him, but I did see Joe Bonamassa at the Royal Albert Hall, which was actually the concert that he filmed that DVD for.
That's that one. Yep.
I also saw Derek, as far as guitarists, I saw Derek Truck's band, which was awesome at Shepherd's Bush. And probably like my favourite one that I saw was the Archangels.
Oh, yeah.
So Doyle Bramhall II, who's
Sexton.
one of my favourite guitarists, and Charlie Sexton. Chris Layton, Tommy Shannon wasn't playing bass. I think someone else was. But, that was amazing show. And the venue actually wasn't that big either. It was maybe like the size of the Corner Hotel or something like that.
Sure.
So, it was pretty amazing to see those guys in the flesh.
Oh, absolutely.
It was really good.
That first album, that debut album they did is so good. I got given that. I must have been about 16 or 17. I remember driving around in my Kingswood, I'd installed a CD player in it, and that was on like all the time. I just love that record.
Yeah, it's so good. And even now you listen back to it and it's still great, I think.
Yeah.
think it's got a bit of that kind of early 90s sort of production sheen to it, but it's killer. Like the songs are amazing, and the two guitarists as well. Yeah. Big fan.
And they reformed this year. I noticed they did another tour of Texas or something like that. It was without
Didn't
Tommy
actually
Shannon.
know that.
Yeah, so they got together and
Yeah.
played all those great tunes. I think there's some YouTube footage if you remember after their chat today. Yeah, definitely go and check it out.
Yeah.
Wicked band.
Check it out. I guess another guitarist that I kind of got into after I sort of changed my style a bit was Nick Curran. I don't know if you're into him.
Absolutely.
From Austin.
Yeah.
Because that was like his aesthetic was something I really liked, because he was like a blues guitarist, but he played like kind of either a pink or a green sparkly guitar, and he dressed really punk, but he still kind of had that old school vibe in his guitar playing. So he's definitely one of my favorites, and I was pretty devastated, as I'm sure a lot of people were when he passed away.
Yeah, far too young.
Because he's just phenomenal talent, that guy. Like his singing voice as well, it's just pretty ridiculous, I think. I don't know. Yeah. Did you ever get to see him live?
No, I didn't. Spewing that I didn't. I did get to hang out with his bass player, Preston Hubbard, in St. Louis when I was in the States. Got to stay at his house for a few days, and he was playing with Nick at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I just sort of chewed his ear off about that kind of material and recordings and gigs and things like that. And it was funny hearing his take on it, because Nick's vibe is to go down there at Fort Horton studio and kind of make it sound like it was done in the 50s and 60s, like a sort of old school flat sort of tones. And Preston was like, oh, no, man, I'd love to shake Nick's old school vibe a bit and sort of get him a bit more contemporary and playing to a newer sort of. I was like, I don't know, I kind of like what he does. But
no, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely, and his work with the Fabulous Thunderbirds is great too. Have you heard that with him and Kirk Fletcher?
Yeah, and I've seen some of the videos on YouTube where he's dressed like Sid Vicious or something, and he's playing a Pink Jackson guitar. Yeah. And the blues purists are probably like, who the hell is this guy? What is he doing? But he sounds like Jimmy Vaughan. Like he's he's killer.
Yeah. I reckon that's what got him kicked out of the T-Birds though. I don't reckon Kim would have been too. Yeah. I don't know. I don't reckon Kim was too cool with him going with that vibe. And what was that record, that last record Nick put out? Reformed Schoolgirl, is it?
Yeah, they're kind of more like girl group kind of punk sonic sort of sounding thing. And that's a really, really kind of distorted, sort of dirty sounding recording, like in the best kind of way. Yeah. It sounds like it could be from the 60s or something. Yeah,
definitely shame to have lost that amazing talent. Yeah, Nick was great. So, listeners, if you haven't heard Nick Curran, go and dig up some Nick Curran. He did a few records on his own with the Nightlives. I think there's about 4 records. And then there was that last one just before he passed away. But, he's on Fabulous Thunderbirds. What was that record called? Painted On or something like that?
It was Painted On.
Yeah. And did he play with Kim Lenz as well?
Yeah, that's more of that rockabilly kind of stuff, which I haven't listened to those records as much, but what I have listened to, he was brilliant at that as well, and he's just a great sort of jump blues guitarist, I guess. Yeah. A bit of that sort of swing vibe to it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, big fan.
Big fan. Good. Thumbs up from me. So let's think about what we got up to. So you're in London, you're hanging out, you're seeing some music. You moved to Melbourne after Adelaide. What was the draw card there? Was it a work-orientated thing? Like you thought there was more music potential down in Melbourne?
I'd been wanting to go there for a while, like for the music scene, really, because the band that I was playing in Adelaide, the Villainettes, were like a kind of rockabilly surfy band, and we'd go and play in Melbourne every 3 months or so.
Everyone knows you're a flea-bitten liar. I'll break your bones and I'll set you on fire. I'll break your bones and I'll set you. I'll break your bones and I'll set you. I'll set you on fire.
And we just kind of made friends with a lot of bands down there, and we're like, seems like a really, great city to be in. And after living in London, obviously going back to Adelaide was a bit of a shock because pretty different vibe. But I was actually in a long distance relationship with someone who was living in Melbourne, and after about almost a year, I was like, screw this, I'm moving to Melbourne. You know, I've always wanted to live there anyway, so may as well just do it. And decided pretty quickly to do it because I'd put it off for about 5 years. You know, since I got back from London, I was like, going to move to Melbourne, and I would threaten to do it every 2 weeks or so, but they never did it. So had to make that decision, and headed over here. And it's a great place to be. Like there's so many music venues, so many great musicians. There's a lot going on, so it's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
except
absolutely.
for the last 2 years.
The last few years have definitely been a struggle. How did you go? Did you, I guess because you've got employment, I know it still evolves around the music industry, but was having a job at Maton a good sort of solid anchor for you?
Yeah, it was. We had a period of time where the Maton factory was actually shut because the restrictions wouldn't allow manufacturing for about 2 months. So I was at home during that time. I found it at first I was quite happy to not play gigs and have a break because I think I'd been touring a lot and playing a lot plus working full time, and I was maybe a little bit burnt out. So when it sort of the lockdown first happened, it was almost like a relief to me, which is probably no one's ever said that before. But I kind of enjoyed having a bit of time. I actually didn't pick up a guitar for 4 months during the first lockdown. Even though I had a lot of time, I sort of started I was still working during the day, but I just started doing other things. Like a lot of people took up running, as I did. Just doing other things and sort of having a bit of a break after like a long period of time of, doing a lot of music stuff, which is probably good because eventually I sort of realised that I really miss playing gigs because that's kind of the thing that inspires me the most about playing music is playing for other people.
Yep.
Don't really get off on practicing on my own or recording by myself. I love playing to an audience. You know, I like the gig vibe. So it was difficult. But Melbourne's such a great place that as soon as the lockdowns were sort of over, the gigs were full again. It didn't take long for venues to be booking everyone again, and there was good crowds at every gig. So people came back straight away. No one was scared. You know.
Yeah, and I think it made people realise that how much they needed music in their life as not only a social sort of scene to catch up with their friends, but to sort of fulfil that need in themselves to get a fix of some good music. You know, fill their soul up a bit with good tunes and just that getting back in the community as well. So I think definitely. Come back stronger than ever. And people, even though capacity was smaller, I know here in Tassie we did okay. We didn't cop as many lockdowns as you guys in Melbourne. But I know that venues and audience members were quite happy to pay more for the privilege of a smaller size room or a more intimate show perhaps. And just sort of everyone knew that musos were doing it hard. So they were happy to financially make it work as well, So it's been a nice little.
When you think about it, I was just going to say, when you think about it, gig prices had sort of stayed the same for probably 15 or 20 years. The $10 entry or whatever, and now it's quite common for a local band to be charging $20 to $40 for a show, which is what they deserve, I think. And people here, at least in Melbourne, are quite happy to pay that. Especially if it's like someone's launch or something, which I don't think it would have been the case before the pandemic that people would have necessarily paid that much for a local band, but it seems to be the norm now and people are copying it, so it's good.
It's great. So I've noticed you play guitar with quite a few different people around town. Give us a little rundown of who you're working with at the moment, Jess.
So mainly playing with a band called Hannah and Jessie Lee's Bad Habits, which is a sort of alt country band that I started back in Adelaide probably about 8 years ago with my friend Hannah, who's a singer-songwriter. And we've sort of started off as a duo when another band that we were in broke up. And then we've kind of got band members here. So that's the main one that I'm doing at the moment. I was playing with Cash Savage and the Last Drinks, which are a pretty well-known Melbourne band prior to the lockdowns and stuff like that. And, yeah, did a few tours with them overseas in Europe, and we did a lot of shows throughout Australia.
Cool.
And, got to do some big venues and stuff with them, which was really great. And, I made the decision that, I would leave the band about a month before the pandemic, mainly because I was finding it hard to take so much time off work for the tours they wanted to do and keep my job. So I decided that I would quit the band instead of the job, which it was a hard decision to make, to be honest. But in the end, the lockdowns happened and I probably didn't need to quit. So I wouldn't have been going anywhere anyway. So, yeah. But you never know. I did feel fortunate to have work while it was all happening. So, yeah.
Yep. And who else are you playing with at the moment?
And also been playing with a band called Georgia State Line a little bit. Played with them up in Tamworth, filling in for their usual guitarist, and I've played with them on a few other things, and just getting in the scene a bit more with some of the more country sort of stuff. So learning a lot and got a lot to learn because it's a lot different to playing what I've probably played in the past. So,
yeah, you sort of got to tame the attitude back a bit typically.
Yes.
And arrangements.
Stay a bit more sober at the gig as well.
Yeah, stay sober, stick to the arrangement, learn your part.
Yeah.
It's funny, I've been doing a Beatles, I wouldn't say it's a tribute band, but we do like about 2 or 3 shows a year of Beatles albums, or we'll sort of try and stick to a theme. And the players are great, they're all good people, fun to hang out with. But I kind of took the first gig as like, oh yeah, I'll be right. I know the songs, I've sort of heard them a million times. I'll be right. But I went to the first rehearsal and I was like, geez, I really need to know my part. It's like real part music. That's one thing that I think playing blues and improvised sort of music, it's quite free, and you just go with, especially as a singer, I suppose, I can sort of lead the band. And so it was nice for me to actually go, no, you need to learn this song. It's got to have this tone. You've got to go through this arrangement.
Guitar parts are great.
Oh, they're amazing. I totally underrated it until you pick it apart.
Were you playing George or?
We swapped it around. We kind of just did whoever might have been singing might have done the easier part, or we weren't quite in costume. It wasn't that like full on regimented in who's doing who. I've got
some friends in Adelaide who do that.
Yeah, right.
They've got a band called the Lady Beatles, and it's all female Beatles cover band, and they've been doing it for 20 years. Cool. And they've got the Sgt. Pepper's outfits and everything. It's really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I totally underestimated the guitar parts and the song arrangements, because those songs just need it. You can't veer off that track, especially because the whole song just gets thrown around otherwise. So, yeah, it was a good thing for me to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up listening to a lot of the Beatles when I was a kid. Like, that was one of the only sort of CDs we had. And now listening to Buck Owens and a lot of 50s sort of rockabilly stuff as well, you realise how much of the early Beatles stuff as well and the guitar style came from those guitarists like Gene Vincent and all that sort of stuff. I didn't know, because I'd never heard the actual original music that they were referencing. Yeah, so it's interesting to tie it all together, I guess.
Yeah, cool. And you've been teching a bit as well. Guitar teching for a few bands. So that's another way to get out and about. How did that come about? Was that through the Maton thing, or just through friends and the music scene in Melbourne?
Yeah, kind of through friends really. So I've sort of made friends with Brendan Love, who's the bass player of the Teskey Brothers, and their sound engineer and stage tech also used to work with Cash Savage. So there was a bit of a connection there as well. And
cool.
The guy who normally techs for the Teskeys was playing guitar in the Teskeys, because Sam, who's usually the guitarist, he couldn't make a few gigs. And so they asked me to come on board as a tech, which was really fun because I hadn't really done it before. And, yeah, it's a good way to sort of travel around and see a big show and a big production as well. Like the last ones I did with them, they were touring with Jimmy Barnes doing his Soul Deep tour.
Oh, yep.
And so they were opening act for him. And, yeah, it's like I've never been behind the scenes at like Rod Laver Arena or any of those sort of things. So it's good to see how it all runs.
Yeah, it's a different machine, isn't it? Like it's so structured and everyone's schedule is, mapped out for them. And God, some of those hallways behind those massive venues are just crazy. You can get lost quite easily.
Definitely, yeah.
So what sort of things did you learn in regards to teching? I'm guessing most of the tunes are pretty standard tuning-wise. Were you sort of just doing like switchovers and stuff?
A lot of it, like when you hear the word guitar tech, when they first asked me, I was like, I don't know how to fix guitars. Like I know the basic sort of things, but like, if something really broke, I wouldn't know what to do. Hopefully they don't hear that. But it's the guitar teching, like the live stage stuff is more about setting up the back line, being organised for guitar changes, tuning, re-strings if they need to be done, setting the stage as well, like, putting the pedals where the player wants it, making sure everything's taped down, making sure everything's working and sound's coming out. Just being organised because they're like you say, their setup and stuff's pretty simple. I don't think I could deal with someone with rack systems and things like that. Yep. But they had a couple of guitars each. They play in standard tuning, and they use quite heavy strings, so they're not breaking strings every second song or anything like that. Yep. So it's just guitar changes, and just anytime something goes wrong, being able to sort of quickly jump in and change a lead over or change a hi-hat stand or whatever you need to do. It's good fun actually. And I have learned a few more things about actually things that might go wrong and, adjusting necks and stuff like that since I've been doing it. So, it's been fun.
Yeah.
Something I'd like to do more of. And I think there's a bit of work out there for it as well at the moment because I think a lot of people in the industry who are more behind the scenes have moved on to other things. So sound engineers, stage techs, guitar techs are really sought after at the moment in Melbourne especially. There's a lot of work going around.
Yep.
Because a lot of tours are happening all at once. So everyone's kind of booking people up. So I've been asked to do a few other things that I couldn't do. But if you've got any skills and that kind of stuff, I'd recommend, trying to get the word out there, I guess, amongst people Yeah.
That's cool. It's definitely good to see touring acts sort of back on the scene again now. But like you said, everyone's trying to do it at the moment too. It's getting very, very busy out there.
Oh, they really are. Yeah, my partner's a sound engineer and she's got so much work and always being asked to do things, especially last minute too, because someone will have booked someone in and then that person gets sick or whatever or can't make it somewhere. And then, so it's, there's a lot of work going for people in the industry, which is great after 2 years of nothing for those people who used it as their full-time work, I guess.
Yep. And I guess guitar teching is a good way for a guitar player to just see how it's done on another level too, because it's to get to that level of staging where you're playing for, 5 to 10,000 people, that's the top end of town. So if you get to sort of rub shoulders or just like you said, see how that industry sort of works at that level, it's really inspiring and it's such a well-oiled machine. Like people are just delegated for that job. They do the job and, you've got a phone call, you've got a phone number to call any time of the day if you need to sort of iron out a problem. And, it's definitely a good way to, if you can, if you've got the skills, I suppose. But you also need good social skills too. I know that you sort of probably don't mingle with the artists so much, but it just the ability to talk to other crew and stage sort of operators or venue operators or whatever, just having that nice casual kind of easygoing manner about you definitely helps in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's probably 90% of the job, I guess, is being easy to get along with and just being professional, I guess. And, when you've got to travel with people too, you not to be annoying and not to be a wanker, be a normal person. And, and it is good seeing like people at that professional level and even how they do things like sound checking. And you can take that back to your own, like my own local gig down at the Gem Bar or something, not playing all over the stage when someone's trying to, test the fallback speakers or something like that. Just all that kind of things that you don't really think of till you see a real professional sort of sound check occur, you go, oh, this is why they have sound checks. You know, it's so the sound engineer can actually get a good sound for you. You're not, everyone's not just playing at once, noodling all over the stage, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, hot tip.
And definitely don't noodle while the sound engineer is bending down in front of your amp, trying to plug the mic in or something.
Absolutely.
That's my second tip.
Yeah, that's another good hot tip. Because quite often, you know, they're putting a microphone in front of your amp, and if you blast them, they're going to have ringing in their ears, and you're not going to get sound. You're not going to sound very good. What's happening in the periphery for you at the moment musically?
Hannah and I are going to record some singles and then hopefully an album for our band. So we did an album about 6 years ago now, so we haven't really done anything since then, but we've got heaps of songs. So our aim's sort of to release some new stuff finally, do some video clips and do some touring in Australia. So we play at Tamworth most years over the last few years. So, yeah, aim is to head back up there and do some more shows in like probably around Sydney, Newcastle and back in Adelaide. So, yeah, try and get an album out basically within the next year is the goal at this stage.
Yep. And do you guys have a go-to studio, or you have some friends with home studios, or how do you guys go about recording?
Well, we've been doing some demos just in our practice space. So we've got a friend has a practice space that they've got at the bottom of their office, and they allow us to practice there for free every week, which is amazing because it costs usually about $100 to rehearse in Melbourne, especially if you have to hire backline and stuff like that. So we did some demo recordings there, but we're planning on heading to an actual studio with a producer. We're just having a look at a few different people and trying to work out who to go with. Because our last album we recorded with Paul Mabry and Nick Finch, which was a really great experience, but it was a bit different to what I'd probably do again. We recorded it all live without headphones.
Yep.
Including the vocals. So we did some overdubs of some guitar solos, but most of the tracks and the vocals were done live, which is interesting, but it was a bit hard because we hadn't really rehearsed that much. So it's probably something I'd rather do with a really well-oiled band, I guess.
I was going to say that does really give you a nice performance, especially if you're used to performing live in front of a room and you've got, you know, that energy of a live interaction between the players. But yeah, I think you really need to be a well-rehearsed outfit with the songs, like just sitting in that right zone. Whereas if you're still sort of...
Especially with tempos and everything too.
Yeah. Were the vocals kind of in a booth or anything, or were they sort of on the floor with all the other instruments?
I think she was just, I don't know why I can't remember because I should be able to remember, but I think she was just standing, we were all sort of around in a circle. The songs weren't like super loud, but I think we must have had PA speaker or something. But yeah, I was very sick when we did the recording. I always seem to get the flu whenever I have to record an album. It's like it's a reoccurring thing. It's happened to me every time I've recorded. I've literally been like very sick. I think because I always try and record in winter, which is not good for me.
Right.
Yeah, so hopefully that doesn't happen next time. But yeah, it was. Yeah, Hannah did a really good job to do the vocals live. I think it's not an easy thing to do. Also
Absolutely.
a bit of pressure knowing that you don't want to stuff it up because then everyone will have to do another take of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge pressure. That's cool though, but it's good to do that stuff as well, isn't it? To sort of see how one technique works and then maybe try another technique next time, or if you have the luxury of experimenting like that. I think it's so good because definitely I'm in the belief of performance totally overrides tonality or recording prowess. You know, like if something's engineered well it doesn't make a good record. Like, it starts at the performance. So, yeah, I'm a huge believer of that. But if it sounds good...
Some of the best recordings are demos.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, like you said, we're always learning, always trying new things. So it's good to keep the learning happening.
Yeah, definitely. And do you do most of your recording at home? You've got your own studio set up?
Yeah. Ever since I was a kid, my dad had like an old 8-track reel-to-reel, just a sort of pretty crappy Fuzztex one. But that was a good introduction to microphones and mixing desks and rooms. I have done records in professional environments, but I guess it boils down to financial reasons. Mind you got to buy the gear in the first place, but to have my own facility, it's so good because we can have the time. You know, we're not looking at a clock every time we press the red button going, oh, geez, you know, there goes $1,000.
Yeah.
But the downfall is...
I kind of like that sometimes.
Yeah, because the downfall is you can procrastinate so easily. So with a booked-in facility, you have your day or few days or your week booked in. You get in, you get it done. You've kind of got that, your blinkers on, you're totally on point. Whereas if it's just up in your comfortable area, you can just go there whenever you want and you just edit, or you can just lay a track down. And so pros and cons, totally.
Yeah.
But I love it. It's one of my happy places. I think the recording environment, I just love, trying things out and putting a microphone somewhere that you might not have done last time and just try things out, and it's cool. It's fun.
Yeah. I need to learn from you because I'm still not entirely comfortable with recording. Yeah, fine with playing live, but as soon as I press record, I'm like, oh, I think it does. It probably just comes down from not doing it enough or not doing it regularly. I'd get in a bit of a groove of doing it a lot, and then I won't do it for a few years, and then I kind of spook myself every time I think about doing it, which is why we've been doing demos and things before heading into the studio, also knowing it's probably going to cost a bit more this time. Just want to make sure we're prepared and practiced up and know what arrangements we're going to do and things like that.
I think pre-production's a great idea, just to hear the songs back and see what they sit like, because, what you hear in your head might be different to what someone else hears, and to sort of talk about sounds and grooves and things like that as a group, instead of just like going, okay, cool, I'll see at the end of the song, like head down, bum up sort of stuff. So it's good to analyse a little bit, not overanalyze. You got to be careful. Don't want to lose that magic.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Well, I reckon we might wrap it up, Jess. Thanks very much for hanging out with us on the podcast tonight. And happy travels to Tassie. I'm going to miss you. I'm heading over to Echuca for a blues festival there tomorrow.
You're heading to Victoria, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. We're trading states for a few days.
Yeah. Are you playing on a paddle steamer, or is that part of the festival?
Not this year. I have done a solo. Actually, no, I've done a band gig on a paddle steamer over there too before. But yeah.
Oh, awesome.
That is a good way to listen to music and to play music. The chugga of the big paddles.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, all the best. And hopefully we can catch up again, maybe in Tamworth or somewhere, or when you're down in Tassie next.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Right on.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks for listening, folks, to another episode of Say It With Guitars. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast, share it around to your mates, leave a good review, and hopefully we'll see you next time.